Hey everyone, what's up, Twisted people? It's your girl here,
Woo!
Chauncey K Robinson, the Twisted Woman CKR. And here with me today is my awesome co-host,
Michael Damian, everybody. Woo! MOON. That spells all kinds of media. We have the book and the DVD.
Yes, the book and the DVD of The Stand, which we are doing weekly recaps channel of when it comes to the new Stand miniseries, the Stephen King 2020 version of The Stand that is happening on CBS All-Access. And this episode is episode 2. When it comes to, it's called The Pocket Saver. And thank you for all of you who are joining us live today. And thank you to those who are watching the replay. It is always appreciative. So thank you for being here with us. So we are doing the recap reaction of The Stand, episode 2, Pocket Saver. So Michael, what did you think of this episode?
Well, I really enjoyed it. I love the new updated Larry Underwood story. However, as a whole, it's really difficult. If I had no idea what The Stand even was, it's really hard to follow if you were a newcomer and had to take a step back and observe that. But as far as a Stephen King fan, I can kind of put the two pieces of the puzzle together and be like, okay, well, that makes sense. That's happening because of that.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I wasn't really feeling this episode. To me, I felt like this episode was, one, I was hoping they wouldn't do what they did in the first episode, which was the back and forth jumping back and forth, which they were doing. And I was like, I kind of want this to be chronological order once again. And I felt like they went even heavier with this because they were focusing on a few characters. And I don't know. I just feel like there's a certain lack of connection to these characters, especially I really wanted to feel connected to Larry Underwood, who we met this episode. And I couldn't because they were just jumping all over with his character. It was 1 minute when he was doing drugs, the next minute when he's kind of on the road to Boulder, the next minute when he's in Boulder. And I was like, this is all over the place. And I just felt like when the credits started to roll at the end, I thought, is that it? That's what I thought. I honestly was just kind of not feeling it. So
yeah, maybe I felt it a little bit more than you, but I do agree with what you're talking about. It was too jumpy. It was too there was no room for anybody. Like in the original one, we all got to watch the characters grow. Then that's what I thought the pilot episode of this last show did a really good job on. Letting the characters grow. Now we either have to not really know what's going on, or we have to know who these guys are already. And to bring an amazing, powerful tale to a new audience, I think they kind of chose the hard road.
Yeah. And, we'll have a segment here. Right now, we're talking about, we wanted to focus in, especially for those who are new to the story overall. We're going to focus the first part of our reactions and reviews. We want to focus on the episode itself and what we saw with the storyline. And then we're going to go to the differences between, the book and the 90s miniseries. And finally, our other little games we like to play with it. But I agree. I felt like it was just kind of a lack of connection. I was just like, this is kind of all over the place. And once again, I kept feeling like if I didn't know this story, I would be so confused.
Yeah.
I just felt like it was almost kind of like there's a lot of coming at me, but not enough to really resonate. And that's kind of what I felt with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, baby, can you dig your man? But I would love to. I don't know which man I'm supposed to dig.
Yeah, because it was kind of all over the place. And, okay, so we got our overall kind of thoughts of that. So I wasn't feeling it. You liked it a bit more than I did, I think. And, okay, so with this episode, we met Larry Underwood for the first time. We also met Nadine for the first time. We saw Nick. We saw a character named Nick for the first time, who's deaf and seems to be blind in one eye or missing an eye. We met Lloyd, the prisoner Lloyd. That's who we met this episode as well. We saw a little bit of Mother Abigail, and we also met Larry's friend Rita on the road there. played by the awesome Heather Graham. I usually like her as an actress, and I liked her in this role. And she was good. She showed up for this one. So it seemed like this episode was mainly focused on Larry. This was Larry's episode. And I guess that's why I was a little annoyed, because I just felt like I would have wanted a little bit more than what we got from him. I didn't get to see his growth. I got to see his growth before, but I'm not, going to talk about that, but I didn't see much of a growth. I'm like, okay, did he change? He's suddenly not doing drugs anymore. What's going on?
Yeah, I think as far as Larry, he probably still is doing drugs. And also, it's wild the amount of drug use that is in here. And I know, like, we live in a different time period than, like, the 90s came out. And I'm sorry for jumping back to comparing. But, yeah, I think we're seeing Larry begin to grow. Begin to grow. He's still kind of like base level Underwood, but he's about to grow. So I think there's hope. But, yeah, they didn't spend nearly as much time on Larry, I think, in a non-confusing way.
Yeah, and like Damon Robinson, hey, Damon, thanks for joining us in the chat. He pointed out we also saw Joe, the little boy. Joe, the little boy who doesn't talk. He was also a character that we were introduced with Nadine, who was taking care of him, and also Larry, who we find out met them after he met Rita. That was one of the flashbacks. So it was like two flashbacks in one. 1 minute he's with Rita, the next minute we're waking up in a grocery store and he's hanging out with Nadine and the whole group heading to Boulder. So that was a thing too. Okay, so if we focus in on Larry's, let's focus in on Larry's plot point for a second, then we can go to Lloyd. So with Larry, like I said, it was kind of this back and forth. He's a black man, a black musician. We kind of find him already kind of snorting a whole bunch of coke. Going up his nose. And we find out with Larry that he actually stole a song from his former roommate, who was also a drug dealer. And so that was kind of interesting. He's kind of he's a drug addict. He's an alcoholic. He stole the song. He's on the cusp of being a big time person. He has an album out called Pocket Savior, which Michael's going to tell us what that actually means. Because I was like, why is this called Pocket Savior? What is that? It's also the name of the episode, which lets you know this is a Larry episode. So we got this whole fight because the guy comes in, his friend or ex-friend, and it's like, you stole my song. That's how you made it big. And so that happened. I don't know. How did you feel about that? We also saw his mom too.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with the Larry one. And it's hard to do without even bringing up the book. But is it cool if I bring up the book?
No, we got to compare it. We want to do it into the segment. Yeah. So just what did you think of that thing for the episode itself? I know it's hard.
It totally is. I was thinking about that after watching the show, and it was like, this is wild because
once again it goes back to you kind of had
completely new, different directions. And I thought, like, I really liked how it happened, but I wanted to know more. And I liked the fact that Larry's mom was able to be admitted to a hospital at the very least. And I thought the roommate drug dealer guy, I don't think it was really conveyed that well that he potentially had a song stolen by Larry.
Yeah. No, I know. It was kind of weird. It was like this whole thing of, and Damon points out in the chat, and we'll talk a bit more about the whole thing with when we compare the books versus the TV show of the 90s with this adaptation, that they downplayed how big Larry was on his way to being. In the old one, his song was always on the radio right before and during the sickness. And that was the thing too. We didn't even get to hear Can you what was it? Baby, can you dig your man? We didn't even hear the song. This song that was like this crux of this whole thing going back and forth. We don't even hear it. We just get him snorting coke and, going on stage, and he's about to play something, but nothing gets played. So we don't hear any song. We don't get to even hear Baby, Can You Dig Your Man? We don't even get to hear the song that made him such a huge person. So that was kind of weird. And it was kind of like, okay, I'm just supposed to know that he's some big time person. And I'll be honest with you, I only really understood that he was about to hit big later on in the episode when he was pointing out to Rita that he had a billboard. And I was like, oh, okay, so he was about to be famous. If I was new to this, I wouldn't have he was playing a little concert place. And there were people there to listen to him. Yeah. But it was also kind of like, I want to get that this dude was about to be some huge star from that.
It was like Larry open Mike Underwood. Like, okay, like, is he on a lineup? Is this his big thing? Yeah, it was like, what about Larry is a musician other than that one thing and the billboard in New York? And I agree with Damon too. Like, it is very hard to go, oh, what am I going to say about Larry without bringing up the book or the previous one? Because it was like a shell of Larry Underwood.
It wasn't as much. And like Cage Akuma, thanks for joining us in the live, Cage. And yes, I do remember you. Thank you for being here. And Cage says, definitely remember hearing Larry's song all the time in the original. Exactly. And that was what kind of like, and it was New York he was in. I didn't even get the real sense they were in New York until the last shot with all the cars. It was just, I don't know, like I said, it was just kind of this weird, like a little bit shallow. It was kind of like, he's in some, and he looked like he was in a dungy club. I was like, okay. And like, I'm supposed to believe he's about to be some big time person. So it was kind of weird. I was like, okay. And then, we know he's a coke addict, and then we also see his mom, his sweet mom, and we got to compare definitely when we get to the book to end this comparison, because the mom is completely different in all the other iterations. And so his mom is, someone who cares for him. She shows up to his thing, and he's very, you can just get the sense Larry's a jerk because, he's kind of like, thanks for coming, mom. And his mom is judging him, of course, because he's clearly on coke and drugs, and she's worried. And so, she's there, but she has a cough, the ominous cough that we hear. And then the coke addict ex-friend comes, and we know he has a gun, and it's a whole thing. No, he doesn't have the gun yet. He's there. He's like storms the stage, which another thing, like, it was like Larry even said, we don't got security. I'm like, you must be a big time person and you don't got security. Like,
you could
weird.
He was more of a fan, like a crazed fan in this one than what the deep background story behind that character actually was.
Yeah.
And it goes back. Yeah. It just goes back to the problem. Like, if you are unaware of this material, you are going to be really confused.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, okay, so he stole someone's song. He's kind of a jerk to his mom. He's all up on coke. Got it. So then suddenly, and then within that, because you got to take it from timeline, because they jump over to him a couple of times to other aspects. Yeah. He wakes up the next morning, hooks up with the waitress or whatever, and she's got snot. That was so gross. She had snot just like coming down her nose, and she's like, can you give me a tissue? And of course, he's just like, oh, I gotta go. Suddenly something came up. Another example of how much of a jerk he is. The woman he just took home or went home with is sick, and he's not even trying to help her. He's on his way out the door. He called himself an Uber. He had somewhere to be because he wasn't trying to be there as a play on a Drake song. And he also ignored his mother's call. Larry's just not coming out to be a cool person in this so far. He's kind of a jerk. And then, flash forward and, we find out his mom's in the hospital and she's got the neck thing. And it was so sad. Yeah. That aspect was so sad. I just think, maybe just personally for me, Black mothers are such a sacred thing to me. And, just that symbolism of hope and strength and all the things that Black mothers have to deal with, especially in this society. And then I see her sick. And the thing was just like, that got me, but only for my own reasons, I think. Just like the personal connection to it as a Black person seeing this. And then he takes her home. Why he takes her home? I guess there's like nothing else he can do. He takes her home and she dies. Yeah. So we got his mother for all of a second. 1 minute she's there and 1 minute she's not. So this is the second time. I'm just going to point it out. This is the second time where the people we have seen die in these episodes has been another Black person. It was the captain guy in the first one, and this time, and they put his race Black, and now they made the mother Black in this one, and she died too. So I don't know. I'm just like, okay. So, yeah.
I got an opinion. I'm not a doctor by no means, but I thought, and it's a mini series about people dying, and there's no way to like really sugarcoat this, but I think isn't it like on the news like I don't know if that's a good picture for what I'm about to say, but it was isn't COVID-19 like killing a disproportionate amount of African Americans in America?
Yeah, that is a thing as well. Yeah.
And I wonder if they're kind of subtly pushing that in this show. If it's like a civil rights.
At least in the first part, maybe, yeah. Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just felt something. I was like, and like, okay. And she's hallucinating and she goes home. And then he comes right out and he takes the dude's drugs. The guy who he stole the song from takes his drug, who's also a drug dealer, takes his drugs, and then basically is sleeping in the park with drugs on him. And it's like, okay, your mom just died. You're not going to try to bury her. You're not making arrangements. I'm just like, I'm not feeling this guy. And I know throughout this episode, they were going back and forth. So you see him kind of being a little bit better of a person, but they were building so much on the fact that he wasn't a decent person that it was like, it's kind of hard to identify with this guy right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And going back to the thing where you were talking about, you couldn't feel like you were really in New York. Yeah, it was tough because there were my two issues with this. One, you couldn't really tell it was Central Park until they did that really cool wide shot of Manhattan.
All the cars, yeah.
Where it's just like desolate and dead. And my other problem with that is you're showing this fantastical New York that is all dead and gone. But everybody in this show looks fantastic for the most part. They're wearing like iron clothes, like Heather Graham, like all of the women in this show look like they crawled out of a catalog, and all of the men look very well put together for society have collapsed like a few months ago. Like no one's wearing like Looney Tunes shirts or like, Nike and just like what I'm wearing right now. Like no,
just like all over the place clothes, yeah.
Everybody looks great. Like you can tell these are actors, and that maybe one of the things that's taken me out of this is you can kind of tell they're actors, not by their performances, by just the circumstance of everyone is clean, looks great, and is like actually dressed to the apocalyptic nines.
The apocalyptic nine, I like that term. And yeah, like Blue Wolf Phoenix Rising said, thanks for joining us in the chat. I guess they're trying to prove that the virus does not discriminate in terms of, what we were talking about Larry's mom as well. Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. And yeah, like you said, people are dressed very nicely, but this was kind of when it first started. So I could imagine, especially we meet Rita, we're getting to the point where we meet Rita, and she was like a socialite, kind of well off. She had a penthouse in New York. She had her husband, and she seems kind of free flowing. And we met that rando client patient dude who was just like, you could do anything you want. I'm gonna go jerk off. I'm gonna go jerk off in the stadium, as Damon is saying in the chat. The Yankee Yanker looked disheveled. He did. Yeah. He looked like he was walking straight from the hospital. He did say that he came straight from the hospital. So it was like, okay, he's coming straight from the hospital. He was at a point where he didn't care about anything. And so we meet Rita. We get a very elaborate love scene between the two of them. Very quickly popped off. No care for that. In terms of just them getting on with it. Okay, the CBS All-Access, they can show the beautiful looks between them and stuff. And
I'm not used to CBS like showing all this much banging and like saying the word fuck. I'm just like, wow, man, The Big Bang Theory could have been so much better. Like, it's just like, man, it just does not feel like I'm watching CBS. And I think that's one thing that I like. I love CBS, don't get me wrong, but this feels like an HBO show on CBS.
Oh, yeah, because it's streaming. You got that paywall money, kind of Cinemax look, stars. And then they try to basically get out of New York. They decide, with all the bodies and everything, the rats could make them be more susceptible to other stuff. So him and Rita try to bounce. And of course, already people are acting a mess. It just started, it seems like, and people are already on we about to kidnap a woman and do all types of crazy. So it's also showing us it doesn't take that much for society to break down. So we get that whole scene, and then we get to the rats. Oh my gosh, the rats in the sewer. That was probably the creepiest scene thus far.
Yeah,
was the rats in the sewer.
Yeah, that. Oof. I love the fact. I'm gonna have to make one comparison, and I apologize, but I love the fact that rats in the sewer was a real thing in this one, as opposed to them going to the Lincoln Tunnel, because the only reference in the movie, the original one, was somebody going up to Larry or like grabbing onto him. He's like, "The rats are in the sewer, Larry," and then. I mean, that was a creepy delivery that he gave, but we actually got to watch the rats are in the sewer.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool aspect. Once again, it went back to the hallucination with Larry's mother in the sewer and the rats coming out of her mouth.
My God.
Like, and that just, I was just like, and now I have to watch. I mean, I was already sad when the mother died, and now I have to watch rats come out of her mouth. I'm like, cool. He's hallucinating. He's all hopped up on drugs the whole time. Like, he just decided we're going to keep taking drugs this whole time that I'm doing this so we can get through it. And so he tries to go through the sewer and everything. And then him and Rita link back up. And we kind of get the sense that Rita eventually is like taking a lot of pills and alcohol. So she's probably not going to make it somehow.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it. And we can talk about that with some comparisons. But I don't know. I just, with that aspect of his journey, I was just like, yeah, he was kind of a jerk. I didn't see any kind of growth. He hooked up with the first woman he saw. He took the drugs, was holding on to him. And I was just like, okay, this is Larry. You know?
I love the billboard, though.
Oh, so yeah, the billboard was cool.
We got a reason why they were in New York.
Yes, we got the billboard. And then, okay, so we get the jumping of the other stuff. So we get right before they hit Boulder. And this is when it goes to like you were talking about in the last review we did, was the tell me storytelling instead of showing me. So we get told that him and his group, Nadine and all of them, we get told by Nadine that she found Joe along the road, which we also have to talk about in comparison because that's a little bit different than how she met him and stuff. And then we get told that basically and also like David Robinson is saying in the chat, they aren't showing Mother Abigail interacting with them in their dreams enough. Now, I don't know if Whoopi had a lot of stuff to do on The View or something because she's just not getting a lot of screen time yet. It's kind of weird. We saw her for like a few minutes in the first one, and I only heard a voice in this one.
If you didn't know what The Stand was, would you know who Whoopi Goldberg is? Or what her character is in this show?
That's once again when it talks about the tell me storytelling. You know, Stu explains to Larry, oh, Mother Abigail, and we hear from another character, oh, she's a prophet, and Larry's like, is that what they're calling her? It's kind of this, everyone's being told, and we as the audience are being told too, instead of seeing anything. We, like Damon said in the chat, it's like we don't see that Mother Abigail is infiltrating their dreams, except, after, the fact, we only see it once. And then we're told everyone else is having the same dreams too. We don't see anybody else having the dreams. We only saw Stu and Franny have the dream. Yeah. So it was like, okay. So, but we're told everyone was having the dreams. And then, we're basically getting told everything that's happening in Boulder, where Mother Abigail and them are, of, people have taken responsibility, things like that. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, it's still feeling like tell me storytelling instead of showing me. And I don't know if that's because they're short on time. I mean, there's 9 episodes. I'm just kind of confused.
That's a very good point to bring up. I was thinking that the point of getting to Boulder felt more of like a season finale, and I was wondering like how many episodes is it only going to be 9? Because it feels like you're robbing the book of wonderful information by just cramming together everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I agree with that. I just feel like I'm wondering, we got a glimpse of a character named Nick who we'll talk about when it comes to book comparison and the 90s version. We see a character named Nick. He can't speak. He has a eye patch on. We meet him for a brief second. We see that there's something weird with Nadine going on. She has the gemstone, the black gemstone that Randall Flagg also hands to Lloyd later on in the thing. And so, and that was the thing about Nadine too. I wasn't really feeling her yet. There was this, I don't know, something's missing with that. And I'm just like, is something dark going on, or is she just guarded? Like there should have been a little bit more of a darkness to this character, considering what may be going on with her, and it's not. It's just kind of like, it seems like she's a little off-putting, you know?
Yes, just a background character. And I love what Blue Wolf is talking about, because, yeah, Mother Abigail, everybody had to have that dream in the beginning, and you knew who was good or bad based on who had the dream of Randall Flagg or Abigail, or sometimes both. And they kind of brought up a little bit, like, and I get what they're going for, but you really can't explain perfectly what Animals in the Desert or that Las Vegas sign is all about. And then you show Mother Abigail, like, it feels honestly like a fever dream of a Stephen King remake.
Yeah, it's just there's just a lot, you know, and I don't think they're doing a good enough thing of building it, of showing it. And that's what like you said, like the fever dream in the desert. If I didn't know anything, I'd be like, what is this? What is that symbol? Why is there still these signs and stuff? And so and so with Nadine, you know, it's this weirdness of there's something dark going on, but we don't know what necessarily. It seems like Larry and her kind of have some attraction, but it's not even that prominent. But he seems very close to them. He offered to stay on the couch. He was basically saying no. He didn't have to, you know, things like that. So, and then Joe, you know, Larry goes to meet Joe. Larry goes to see Harold. And then it seems like Joe's kind of creeped out about Harold. He's like, you know, good about it. Rightly so. So that made sense. That was cool. So Joe seems to get that something's wrong with Harold. And it was just so we get a little taste of what's going on in Boulder. It seemed like I felt like I was coming in the middle of a conversation that it was already happening, though. I was just kind of like, all this stuff is happening already. Cool. I'm kind of behind here.
Imagine if they opened up The Walking Dead with all of them in Alexandria, and then you had no idea what happened the last 5 seasons. It's like, oh, hey, Rick is the good guy. Okay, there's Carol. And then it just felt like, why? Like, there's no... I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but...
Yeah, no, I get it. I just felt like... And it was kind of that vibe throughout the whole episode of there's a lot happening. I'm being told a lot of things, but I'm not getting a chance to feel it because it's all happening kind of quick. And... you know, and Damon Robinson was saying in the chat that, you know, they showed Nadine with the stone kind of early.
Yeah, very early.
With the stone that Randall Flagg has later on that we see, and that he had in, I think it was also the first episode, there was a black stone shown as well. So it's kind of like we don't even... the show, they're showing that there's something off about Nadine, but you don't know what exactly yet. Like, what's her deal? You know, but not in a good enough ways to me to be that intriguing. I don't know if I was new to it, so that was a little weird. And then we had plot point BC, which was Lloyd, our guy, our prisoner Lloyd in the jail cell where Randall Flagg eventually comes and sees him. And that was, you know, I mean, he's left there. He doesn't basically has to chomp on someone's thing. It turns out he's kind of a coward. You know, he didn't actually shoot anybody. He didn't want to shoot anybody. He just wanted to rob people. But his friend was like kind of nuts. And then basically Randall comes and gets him and takes him out. And which I thought that last scene with him and Randall Flagg was probably my favorite scene in the episode. It was the most powerful, you know. It makes you want more of Alex Skarsgård. I never get his last name right, but Randall Flagg. It makes you want more of him. I'm getting more and more. I want to see more of Randall because even in those short scenes that you get of him, it's very intriguing. And I really love that last scene with the two of them.
I'm very happy they're getting Randall Flagg right. Like, I didn't know what the 2020 update was going to be for Randall Flagg, but I'm really happy with the performance of Randall Flagg, and I'm excited for him. And he's one of the few characters that I see has been fleshed out clearly throughout the entire series so far. And I know we've only been on episode 2, but so far episode 1 and 2 kind of pushes the whole series down your throat.
Yeah, there's a lot.
The respiratory infection, but it's just, yeah, I thought that was very powerful, and I love Lloyd. You can kind of tell that Lloyd was a favorite character of the writer of Stephen King, and maybe the people behind CBS as well, because it's perfect. Like, it's almost a duplicate from the book and the movie, and now, like, it's a really nice, and I know, I'm sorry we're jumping all over, but it's a really nice comparison. I thought it was great. I didn't know how they were going to show it. And also, one thing I want to bring up, the introduction, the scene before all of that, like the robbery and stuff, when Larry's crawling out from under the sewers, the crows come back, and that is clearly Randall Flagg. And
there was some crow looks and stuff with the horse, right?
With the horse.
In the horse's eye. Yeah. That was clearly and with, like you said, with Larry getting attacked, that was also clearly Randall Flagg, because we were talking about in the first episode, what animals he turns into, and we're seeing wolf, and we're seeing that crow being around, and the crow attacking Larry was also pretty cool too to watch. So he's definitely playing on these characters a little bit, although it seems kind of silly. Like, okay, why is this crow just attacking Larry in the sewer? Like, what is the Randall trying to get at? Why doing that? I don't know. But yeah, like, and there is the question, like in the chat where it's being asked, like, Randall came in and was like, Lloyd, you're going to be my right-hand man. But you also kind of wonder with the character, he seems a little not capable of being a leader necessarily.
Bumbling.
Yeah, kind of a bumbling fool kind of a deal going on.
And you don't see that in real life. A guy with bad intentions, like stalking his team full of fools who have no idea what they're doing. I mean, that just doesn't happen in real life. It's just it's like, well, who would have thought? Where'd they get that?
Yeah, no, that makes a little bit of sense too. But I like the character Lloyd. I kind of felt like he was a little bit of a comedy relief, a little bit. So it was a little hard to take it seriously until Randall Flagg came in. But I think it'll be interesting to see where they go with his character, because, like I said, out of this whole episode, even though this was Larry's episode, I honestly like the Lloyd parts better than the Larry part.
He had a way better story. Even though I did like the Larry plot, maybe I was more interested in how they were going to go about it.
Yeah, there was an interest of that.
Yeah, and it wasn't that disappointing. The only thing I missed, though, is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar walking up and down with the bell going, "Bring out your dead."
Okay, that's comparison again, though. We're talking about the episode.
It's hard to do this.
I know.
Yeah. Hope everyone else at home is having fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so that was kind of the main. I know in my notes when it finished, I was just kind of like, that's it. It looks like the main big stuff that happened is that Larry reached Boulder. Lloyd got out of jail. He's now with Randall. Rita seemingly took a lot of pills, so she may or may not have OD'd. We didn't actually see the aspect of it, but it looked like she was pretty sad and she was drinking a lot. And it didn't seem like she was there with Larry when he made it to Boulder. So my guess is she doesn't make it. And we see there's something weird with Nadine and something about, did she pull out a Ouija board? Was that a Ouija board she pulled out?
It was like, oh my God. It was like a mystical box. I forgot what exactly was in it, but I was wondering too.
It was something.
I mean, maybe like she's going to use a Ouija board and a dude in jeans is going to pop up. That, I mean, if Randall Flagg can get summoned by like a Ouija board from Target, is he really the bad guy in this? But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it was a good amount of stuff, but for me, my verdict with it is, although this was Larry's episode, I felt like Lloyd's antics stole the show because there wasn't enough when it came to Larry. So, yeah. Cage is saying, I mean, he's not Matthew McConaughey, but Alex Skarsgård does a good job. He does a really good job as Randall Flax thus far. I mean, we haven't really seen him yet, but just for me in that scene with him and Lloyd, I was like, I want to see more of this. Because I don't know, Boulder's seeming a little boring, mainly because I'm hardly seeing Mother Abigail. So yeah. And Damon saying the box said it's a planchette something. We gotta look up what that means. Those of you in the chat or in the replay, if you want to put it in the comments, thank you for joining the replay as well. If you're watching this after the live, let us know what that means in the comments or your thoughts, because we would love to hear them. Okay, so now we want to get to the point where we kind of talk about a little bit of the comparisons without spoilers. So don't worry, we're going to talk comparison of what happened in this episode compared to when they got to these parts in the 90s version and the book version. So you don't have to worry about us telling you anything in the future or whatnot. So no worries about that. There was a few differences with this one. In this one in particular, Larry, I think the big one is that Larry is a Black man in this one, as opposed to the 90s miniseries and the book. And that was an interesting, because I was wondering like how they were going to do this, or what was the point of making Larry Black in this one, because I thought maybe it would be a different play on the music industry, but it seems like they kind of kept with the idea that he stole a song, or, you know, and I know in the book version, they don't really do it as much in the 90s version, but in the book version, and I think you were explaining it to me, that he had done something where he had a band originally and he brought back a song from the studio that wasn't his and was one of his band members. And that's how he made it big in the book.
Yeah, it was, it's kind of like the Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney music feud. Is just, money over music. And they had enough, I believe they had enough room on the album that Larry was working on. They wanted to put Baby Can You Dig Your Man on it, and they couldn't. So Larry saw that as an opportunity to buy the song from the other guy, and he made it a hit. Okay. And then the people, like Larry's like, oh, I'm going to make it big. But the music producers, they wouldn't let him like choose a name for the album like Baby Can You Dig Your Man. So they just went full on corporate and slapped Pocket Savior on it.
So that goes with what this, the title is and what his album is.
Yeah.
Also, another aspect of Larry is that his mother in the book is super, super racist.
Oh my God, yeah.
His mother in the book is super racist, because the thing about Larry in the book is that he has Baby Can You Dig Your Man, which is kind of associated with Black music, you know, soul music and whatnot. And so there's a play on this idea of this white artist kind of doing that, getting big, because he also has a situation with a Black drug dealer, because there's the famous line that's actually also said in the 90s version of that brown sound sure do get around type thing. And so that's kind of just all of that is just erased. For better or worse, I feel like now that I know that, it feels like maybe it was just a casting decision in terms of Larry, just the actor being the better for the part, that maybe they switched it for him. But I also kind of wonder, would it have been better had we got that aspect of it, of him staying and dealing with the idea of a racist mother and things like that. So that was definitely that was a change from both versions. And in the 90s version, he actually meets Nadine in New York. It's him and Nadine who meet up early in New York without the young boy Joe. But in this one, they went with Rita, and Rita is actually originally in the book. In the 90s version, she didn't exist at all. They had combined her with Nadine. So in this one, they brought Rita Blakemore back from the book. So that was more book accurate, if nothing else.
Yeah, because in the movie, he meets up with
Yeah.
Reading the comment, that's a good point. Because he leaves the Lincoln Tunnel in the movie, and instead of going in the sewers, somebody else like says the rats are in the sewers, Larry, in a creepy way, and that's all we get. But I know that Larry like ditches Nadine and meets up with another woman and Joe, like on the freeway when he's playing guitar.
Lucy in the book, yeah. And that's how he meets Joe. So they kind of just remixed it to the 90s version. Yeah. And it seems like they got a little bit more book accurate with this version of how of the chronological order of how and who he meets. And, you know, like Blue Wolf Phoenix is saying in the chat, because the times have changed, they are showing more of a diverse representation in Stephen King movies. Not a bad thing. I totally agree. I definitely think it's good that there's more representation. I just think with me, the question I was figuring is that you make Larry, you know, a black man, and then you make his mother a black mother. And I don't know, it's weird the way it was, you know, now he's the cokehead and things like that. And I'm all for representation. It's a great character, you know, or it can be a great character. I didn't really feel it in this season, in this series yet, but I'm all about, you know, the representation. And, you know, yes, the book is a very daunting thing. It's a very thick book.
1100 and what 20?
Yeah, that's I think we have the unabridged version too.
Okay,
so the next thing that was a difference is Nadine in the book is actually dark hair. She has very stark dark hair, and they did that in the 90s version too. And there's a whole thing, I'm not going to get into it because that's slightly spoiler of there's a reason in the 90s one and the book one that her hair kind of goes clear or white as things progress. So in this one, Amber Heard is playing her, and she's just straight up blonde. So I don't know if that was purposely, because her hair color is kind of a plot point in the book. So I don't know why.
You think it might go back?
I don't know. Maybe there might be a reversal, like her hair getting darker or something. I don't know why they switched that up. It's a little weird. But, you know, that's their choice. Maybe they'll surprise us. The other thing was Nadine and Joe. In the 90s one, Nadine had no connection to Joe, but that was a thing in the book. So it makes sense. They brought that back for the book itself. And then another thing that we actually didn't point out was that Harold in the first one is actually Harold, and they've done this for the 90s one and this one. Harold is slightly a bigger person. He's not as thin in the book as and that's made to be a point in the book. But in this one, and in I think the other one, they made him, you know, they didn't play on that at all. So those are kind of the major book differences and the 90s differences. Did you notice anything else that was kind of different?
Yeah, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar one, the bring out your dad. Like, you knew you were in New York, even though the Lincoln Tunnel got like micro-sized in the made-for-TV one in the 90s, which I love. Like, the Lincoln Tunnel is a doorway for like two doorways on top of each other. But I love the fact that they were true to that, and no Kareem. That's a shame.
Yeah, no Kareem doing the. You know, none of that.
The boss was coming, Larry. The boss was already here.
That would have been good to see. It would have made it more obvious. Instead, we got the escaped patient from the hospital was gonna go jerk off in the baseball stadium. So kind of a weird trade-off.
Yeah. One thing I really love, though, this is for all the techies in the crowd. I really love the fact that they stuck with the green lighting and the weird dreams. They did that in the original, like, made-for-TV one, but they're doing it again. Like, when Larry had the vision of both Flag and Abigail, it has, like, almost that stage lighting. Like, this is all a production, and you're currently in it. And it didn't come off as an element of cheese, but because it was a dream, it worked.
No, I agree. I that's why I'm saying, like we've been talking about, it would have been nice to see a little bit more play on the dreams, play on the supernatural a little bit. And they haven't really been doing that. We've seen more weird flashes of Randall Flagg in the dreams and Mother Abigail in the dreams. So it's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe they're going to pick it up. One of my thoughts is maybe they're doing this with trying to get out of the way Stu and Franny and Lloyd and Larry, because maybe they're going to focus on other characters, because there's a whole slew of characters in the book version. So maybe, you know, because the 90s version only focused on a small groupings and you kind of only saw the other characters in certain scenes. So maybe in this one, they're choosing the route of focusing on characters that didn't get focused on in the 90s version and their plot points. So we'll see about that. That might, I mean, that's the only way I can give them a go or space for how rushed this feels so far to me, or just how they're not sitting with certain plots as much as I think they could.
Yeah, and there was one more that Nick Andros.
Yeah.
The comparison to him, and like
Rob Lowe played him in the 90s version, Rob Pretty Boy Lowe.
Yeah, Rob
and this
Pretty
time
Boy.
we got a little bit more of a solemn looking guy, not as charismatic.
That and somebody who looks like their name could be Andros. Like you don't see Rob Lowe and then go, oh yeah. No, it's like
I think they got the ethnicity better this time around, which was a good thing. This is a good casting in that regard, I think.
Yeah, and he was also deaf and a mute, or what they refer to in the 90s as deaf and dumb, the politically correct way.
Incorrect, very incorrect way, yes.
Yeah, I have hearing loss, and I felt bad watching this one because they took away his eyeball, so like only one hole in his head actually works. It's like, can he talk? Like, I just feel really bad. They're making him blind too. Like, is he deaf, mute, and blind?
Yeah, that's what David Robinson in chat is also saying, the whole thing about the patch. And I wonder if maybe someone can tell us, if that's a thing in the book, maybe, those who are watching this replay and whatnot as well, because I don't know if he had a patch in the book. And I'm wondering why he has a patch in this version, because they didn't do that in the 90s version. Yeah. So now he has a patch. And I wonder if they're going to show the story of how he lost that eye, because it seems a little weird. But I'm guessing, I don't think they did it out of nowhere. So maybe there's a story behind the eye thing. And that seems a little random.
Maybe my only comparison, and once again, they didn't show this at all, and we don't know where Nick Andros came from at all, but he did, exactly. Where's his pad?
Nick usually has to write on a pad to people, and he didn't even have that in the 90s version. He
can read lips perfectly, and that's how he communicates, through lip reading and writing down a note. And then you're just going to take that one? I hope he's that eye dominant, because how's he even going to function? I feel really bad for this guy, unless the only way he got an eye patch was if they somehow bring this up in another flashback where he gets his ass kicked by the best friend of the sheriff in a small town.
Yeah, but we can't get into that because
I don't mean to spoil it, but I just don't know if it already happened and we're already at that point.
Well, we are at that point because we're in Boulder and he has one eye missing. So most likely when they focus on Nick, they'll probably show us how he lost the eye.
I don't mean to spoil. I don't mean to spoil or anything. It just wasn't in there. So I don't know if they just wrote that off. Like, I don't know what Nick's story is going to be in this one.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and the other thing, how is he another character? I'm interested without spoiling. I'm really, really interested in how they are going to portray Tom Cullen.
Well, we haven't met him on the show yet, so there's nothing to say. There's nothing to say. Well, he was cast. That character was cast in the casting list. Tom Cullen was cast, so he just hasn't showed up. There's a good amount of characters we still haven't seen, and this is episode 2, and it seems like that they're Blue Wolf Phoenix is telling us in the original he wasn't blind, he just couldn't talk. So there didn't seem to be anything going on with his eye. So in this one, he has an eye patch. So it's kind of like, what happened? I don't know. They're taking some liberties. I guess we'll see what that has to do with anything.
I just don't like the fact that it seems like, as a Stephen King fan, and some of this was made for Stephen King fans, that they're really kicking a disabled dude while he's down. And it's just, I didn't get a warm and fuzzy from the
I just think they added some added thing to him, perhaps. So I guess we'll see about that. And like Cage is saying, he's blue. Blue. He was deaf. He was also deaf. He's responding to Blue Phoenix in the chat. So yeah, we'll see about Nick. It just seemed kind of weird to kind of have him flash through and then nothing else, because in the book and in the 90s series, Nick is a very big character. He's a very significant character for reasons that get revealed as the show goes on. So it's kind of interesting that there's been no talk of Nick except for this one moment, and then it was that. So I don't know. I just, once again, I feel like this show is kind of playing on the idea that they assume a lot of people have already seen it and know stuff rather than really trying to tell us a story.
And that's why it's hard to kind of talk about this without like any form of like spoilers because of the various versions that have been here. I'm not 100% sure on what even to bring up at certain times with a given character.
Yeah. And like what's being said in chat, Damon saying, I don't know if I can believe that this Lloyd can command the goons Flag has in his army.
Exactly.
Yeah, like you said, Flag is like, you're going to be my right-hand person. And I'm like, how's this Lloyd guy going to be that? I'm just kind of wondering myself. So I don't know. It's interesting casting, but I will say about this, I do think you can look at this show for its storytelling without having known anything about this show, because you have to, in a way, because that's going to let you know if it's good or not. Can they tell a story without you being able to need to compare it? So far, we've had to, in a way, compare it because they've made some changes that don't make as much sense to us, but maybe it will make sense later. And so far, though, some of the casting, I'm just kind of like, what does that, where is it going to go with it? David saying chat about Lloyd, and, like Cage is saying in agreement with Michael that it definitely seems like they're kicking him when he's down. He's deaf and mute, and the lack of depth perception now, there's a lot. And Damon's comparing this Lloyd to the Lloyd that's in the 90s one played. That Lloyd in the 90s version, he was a little bit more of a serious character. He was definitely more of a serious type of character. And in this one, I feel like they played up more of a comic relief for some reason. So it's kind of interesting. I guess if anyone's really, really familiar with the book, maybe they can let us know if Lloyd was more of a comedic kind of character in the book, but so far in comparison to the 90s version, very stark contrast to this one. So there's episode 2, just kind of wondering where they're taking this a lot, because I don't know. Okay, so for our final game, who do you identify with out of this episode? So this is a little game we play where we say, and you in the chat and also in the replay who are watching it, thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments, who in this episode did you identify with the most? Michael, who did you identify with most this episode?
I'm probably going to go with Larry Underwood, only because, we're both like creative people. And while I can't afford Coke yet, I kind of feel hope not ever. Absolutely. Got to add a little humor in a chat about everyone in the world dying. But with COVID, we can't just pretend that the thing doesn't exist. Me and probably a handful of other people, I'm a bartender and I just got promoted 2 weeks before COVID happened, and then I couldn't go to work anymore. So even though I'm not like taking over the music charts, like I had the potential for an amazing, awesome, fun bartending job, and then oops, we can't do it anymore because of said plague. And driving around Hollywood right now, you see billboards that have been up since March, specifically like the Mrs. Fletcher one on HBO Max. And every time I drive by that one, the story has a point. Every time I drive by that one, I imagine what Rita told Larry, like that sign is going to be there for a really long time, probably forever. Like it's probably your own stake in New York. So just by being an artist and wanting to move somewhere when the world says you can't, and just seeing billboards from what seems like a long time ago, I feel very Larry currently right now.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see that. I think I'm going to go with Lloyd on this one. Not necessarily as a prisoner or anything, but just being in a situation, not like anything. Like I just thought, like, what would I do in that situation? Like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in some situation and I can't get out. I am just beside myself. But you kind of have to have a sense of comedy with it. So that's kind of where I'm at. Nothing deep necessarily, but I could totally see that. And maybe a little bit of Rita with the idea of, just kind of being like, okay, let's look at the bright side of this. Let's live our lives as much as we can. A little bit of both, maybe the two extremes. Nothing extreme with that one. But let us know in the chat and in the replay. Thank you for watching that, watching this. Who you compare with more, or who you identify with the most this episode in particular. We would love to know. And yeah, that is basically the show, the episode, this episode of episode 2. I wasn't feeling it as much. Michael was feeling it a little bit more than I was. I'm interested to see where it's going. I can't say with the way they're remixing it, I'm totally not knowing what to expect because I don't know where this is going, because it's just very, very different from the 90s one. So I will say A+ for kind of throwing us off guard for those of us who know the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Very good.
But thank you all. Thank you, Twisted People, for joining us today. Happy Merry Christmas Eve, or whatever you celebrate. Happy holiday, vacation, happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Twisted Woman CKR. This is
Michael Damian, and thank you very much for having me, Chauncey.
Yeah, of course. And thank you all for joining us. Also, be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Click that button, click the notification button so you are the first to know when I post my videos or go live with various shows that I watch. Thank you for watching. Thank you again. And remember, let's get creepy together.